I'm Mike Mazursky, ex-bank robber. My book is Once Upon a Time in Tel Aviv, a bank robber story. I'm chatting with Stacks.
Welcome to this episode of Chatting with Stacks. I'm your host, Bill Stacks, and today I got Mike Mazursky. Once Upon a Time in Tel Aviv, a bank robber's story.
I speak Russian fluently, and I was automatically like with the Russians. Now, this was like a whole new world for me, obviously. I'd never been locked up prior to this. So the Israelis, some of these cell blocks are run by Israeli crime families. Some of them are not. Some of them are just Israelis that like stick together. They're not really, they're not organized. They're just, sticking together. The Arabs, these are not, so the terrorists are housed separately. They're not housed with regular prisoners. So these are like Arabs that are in there for criminal offenses.
Palestinians and people like that, right?
Israeli
Arabs? There's Israeli Arabs, right?
Exactly. Yeah, there's 2 million Israeli Arabs with full citizenship, full rights, and most of them are Muslim. In prison, in jail, the Arabs, that's like one of the groups. But the Arabs are also broken up into other groups. So sometimes you have Arab crime families. You have Arabs from different parts of the country, and they don't get along with each other. So they're split up into like factions, And then you have the Russians. So how it works with the Russians, and I had to learn this as I went along. But so with the Russians, there's a subculture called the Thieves' Code, which goes back. I don't know if you've ever seen in movies or documentaries where you have the guys with the stars tattooed on their chest and the shoulders.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of the movies, they get all that wrong. They get it, backwards. But basically, there's a subculture called the Thieves' Code. That's like the rough translation. It came about in Russia during the time of the Tsars, and during the Soviet Union as well, where it was basically like these guys that lived by this code, they weren't allowed to function in normal society. They could never work. They were only allowed to make money by whether it's picking pockets or burglaries or stick-ups or safe-cracking or whatever the case. When these guys would get locked up, they would run the prisons. They would be like the Dons. And this is like a subculture that sort of every Russian-speaking person knows about it, like the way in America everybody knows about Cosa Nostra, the Hells Angels, even if they have nothing to do with it. The same thing with Russian speakers. Everybody knows about this subculture, even if you got nothing to do with it. So I knew about it. I never had any connection to it. I was always a lone wolf. But when I get locked up, basically I'm in my cell. I'm literally fresh off the street. I just get pinched. This guy comes up to the cell, and he's got prison tats. He's like a heavy-set guy. He comes up to the cell. He's like, a prisoner. He calls me up to the cell, and I right away knew this guy is probably the shot caller. So I come up. I go to talk to him. He's like, "Hey, are you Russian?" So I say, "Yeah, I speak Russian. I was born there." And he asked me, he tells me who he is. He says, "I run this cell block, and my authority comes from." He names a guy that ranks him, that runs like 5 different prisons from another prison, and he basically asked me what I'm in for, what they're accusing me of, gets a feel for me. So I remember I'm fresh off the street, I never ran across this before. I tell him what I'm being accused of, and then he calls to the guard, and he says, "Open the cell, put him in a cell with us." And the guard does it as if this guy's his superior. So I was like, what the? I couldn't believe it, Guard opens the cell. I get into the adjacent cell, and it's all Russian-speaking guys. Everybody's like, they're very friendly, very respectful. I get in there, and we sort of exchange. Everybody's talking, making jokes. Like after we exchange pleasantries, everybody was just talking, telling stories. And at first, my plan was to just sit on my bunk and like process everything that just happened. But everybody was just telling stories and cracking jokes, and I couldn't even think straight if I wanted to. So eventually I was in the thick of it, with them, just talking and actually having a good time, as crazy as it sounds. So later on, I found out how it works is like a cell block would be run by a shot caller. There's a word in Russian. It's going to be hard for you to pronounce, but it's in Russian. It's смотрящий, and it roughly translates to the one who looks. And he sort of looks after the cell block. And there's a guy who outranks him, and he runs the whole prison. And in Russian, he would be called положенец, which sort of translates to the positioner, the one in the position. He runs like the whole prison, and then everything, all the prisons in Israel, the last word goes to two thieves in law. And this is common knowledge in the street, law enforcement. I'm not giving away state secrets. Everybody knows this. So basically, the last word goes to two thieves in law, one of them specifically who runs the prisons. And a thief in law, those are the guys that you see in the movies with the tattoos on the shoulders, on the chest, the stars. So those guys are like, they got the last word. They're like the Godfather,
And
so,
are they in prison too, or are they on the street?
So when I was locked up, these guys, two of them, they were on the street. They weren't in prison. They could be in prison. They could get locked up for something, and then, then they'd be in prison, and they just, whatever prison they'd be in, it'd be like the king of England just got there,
They're like treated like royalty when they go in.
Yeah, 100%. But when I was locked up, these guys were on the street, so they weren't in, and they don't even. I don't even think they pick up calls from prison because they try to insulate themselves. So the only way to talk to them is like it's a whole thing. So I never had any conversations with people that high up. Basically, so when I get pinched, just for the fact that I speak Russian, I'm with the Russians. I'm with them. I'm clicked up. I had to learn about this whole hierarchy, and there were rules upon rules. Like we were never allowed to raise our hands to each other unless. The only way you're allowed to raise your hands to somebody is if he insults you personally. So like if there's a dispute, if there's like any type of misunderstanding, an argument, whatever, you can't raise your hands to each other. You got to go to the shot caller, and he's got to resolve the dispute. You can't even, you can't curse each other. Like if somebody curses at you, you're allowed to crack them right there. So that's like a violation right there. There was all these rules that I had to learn as I went along. There's a lot of drug use. A lot of these guys are using drugs, which I'm not a fan of, but it is what it is, A lot of drug use in prison, unfortunately.
And you don't have to use drugs with them, right? You can not partake.
No, of course. I was never, I was locked up for, in total, 4.5 years. I was sentenced to 5 years, 8 months. I got parole after 4.5.
It's really not that bad for what you did, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, like I always say, in the States, they would have buried me under the jail for this. I kind of, when I moved to Israel, listen, I knew what I was doing. Like I knew that at the end of the day, you're gonna go away. Like the house always wins in the end. I was just such a wild, reckless kid, and this is like the only way I could picture myself living back in that time, so I knew that if I went away, at least in Israel, I could do my time with my own people and not have to worry about Nazis or, black Muslims or whatever the case may be. Also not have to do that much time, all things considered. Initially, they were asking for 12 years and like they were going crazy, but eventually I got 5 years and 8 months. And like I said, I got parole after 4.5. And throughout my 4.5 year bid, not once ever did anybody ever offer me drugs. Like they know their own, like right away, they knew that I never did that. Or I never used it. Like, I was never offered ever. So it's like a funny thing where, you know your own. Like I even though there was use. Not once have I ever even been offered. And if I was offered, I would say no, but I was never even offered. So, yeah.
Did you start to change your life when you were in prison, or did you wait until you got out to really start making the change?
So, well, when I first got locked up, my girlfriend, she brought me a book that I had lying around my apartment and I always loved to read since I was a kid. I always loved to read. So she brought me this book that I never got around to reading, and it was called Jackrabbit Parole by Stephen Reed. Stephen Reed was a legendary Canadian bank robber. He was a member of the Stopwatch Gang. He wrote this book when he got locked up. He got locked up in 1980, so it was a while ago. And he wrote this book. It was based on his life, but he wrote it in the form of a novel. He changed the names around, he changed some details around, and I was reading this book when I first got locked up, and I was just like, it inspired me so much. It was an amazing book, and it inspired me to write, and what I did was I took that format that he used, that blueprint, and I kind of switched things up and turned this story into a novel.